That concludes questions for all answer. I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.
Mr Speaker. Oh, but too early?
Adjourn debate on second reading and amendment proposed thereto.
Speaker.
Honourable Judith Collins.
Oh, Mr Speaker, well, what a great budget it was this year, and we know it's a great budget when the opposition doesn't want to talk about it. So day in, day out, we've had question times since the budget, and day in, day out, the Labor parties wanted to talk about anything except the budget. So where have been the questions on the budget? No, they haven't been there. In fact, we've had to ask our own questions on the budget because the opposition doesn't want to attack us on it. Instead, they've gone and talked about things that the people of New Zealand do not think are important and who continue to do so. In the justice portfolio, I have to say, Mr Speaker, yet again I am so outstandingly excited and pleased with the work that's going on right across the justice sector as we work towards our better public services targets. And part of that is, of course, reducing reoffending rates. And that's something that the Labor Party could never do. All they could do was build new prisons, put more people in jail. They went from about 5,000 prisoners in 1999 when they came into office to 8,500 by the time they left, only 9 years later. And these are the people who would not deal with recidivism, would not put in the reoffending programs that they needed to. But this government, in this budget, even though it's a tight budget and even though there's not a lot of money to spurge around as we're trying to get back into surplus, this government has put in an extra $4.4 million to expand restorative justice. So this is the government that actually deals with reoffending, that actually deals with crime and actually gets crime down. So we've got ourselves across the justice sector, across the corrections, the police, the Justice Ministry, we've got these targets which are all about reducing crime. We've got targets for ourselves for 2017 of a 20% reduction in violent crime, a 15% reduction in recorded crime, a 5% reduction in youth crime, and a 25% reduction in reoffending. That's a whopping target to give ourselves. And how are we going so far? Well, we're currently, after 18 months on these targets, we have a 9% reduction in recorded crime. We have a 7% reduction in violent crime. And we have a whopping 14% reduction in youth crime, and we have an 8% reduction in reoffending. 8% reduction in reoffending already, and it's a shame that the Labor Party never cared enough about people to actually bring down these rates, but we are doing it. And we're doing it in a time where the rest of the world is in economic turmoil. We look at what's happening in Europe. We look at what's even happening over in Australia, where they've been always the lucky country, and yet they are starting to find it pretty tough as well. And we have got through this very difficult time by being very careful, by focusing on what matters. And what matters actually are the people of New Zealand and what they want. And they want less crime, and they are getting it, and we are delivering it. And all at the same time, what we're doing as well is we are giving the tools to our workers in the justice sector, the police, the corrections, and in the ministry, the sorts of tools around technology so that they can make better use of their time and they don't have to spend as much time travelling to and from the police station or the courts or whatever, so they can actually use iPads and iPhones, everything else they can to access the information they need. This is about safety for them, it's also about efficiency, and it's about keeping crime down. And we're doing great guns. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues in the justice sector, the other ministers, the Honourable Anne Tolley, Chester Borrows, Chris Finlayson, the way that we work together. I'm so proud of it, and we're just a fantastic team. And I have to say, you know, we support each other, but we also have a great team in the Justice and Electoral Select Committee, chaired ably by Mr Scott Simpson, MP for Coromandel, just in case the Labor Party didn't know where Coromandel was. They never used to have it. And then, of course, and the great thing is Scott Simpson's doing a fantastic job, and before him, Tim McIndoe. So, I'm just so proud of it. Let's come to ACC. My goodness, I'm so proud to be the Minister for ACC, and yeah, no, I really am, actually. We're doing great guns in ACC. So National came into office, we inherited an absolute financial mess in ACC. But also, we actually inherited a situation where 14,000 people were lingering on very long-term payments from ACC. 14,000. Since then, we have been able to rehabilitate 3,000 people, so now it's 11,000 people on these long-term benefits, but at the same time those numbers are continuing to drop, and ACC is now able to do some other things to help people and to help prevent injuries, which I think is something they should be doing. ACC has a real role in preventing injuries and preventing people ending up losing their independence. And if that does happen for a period of time, to try and get them back to wellness or as much independence as they possibly can. The worst and the biggest risk to ACC and its viability, now that it is, by the way, fully funded in the work and the earners' accounts, is a change of government to a Green Labour alliance. A Green Labour alliance. That is the worst thing. Now, under the budget, I know that Mr Little hates it when I talk about ACC, so it's such a good news story, and he was so ineffective as the spokesman that, in fact, Sue Moroney had to take over, and she's been fabulous ever since. I've really enjoyed her. And what we're doing is we are signalling a levy drop. That is, in effect, a tax refund for all New Zealanders where we will be who work. So that's around about a $300 million down, a levy loss, a levy drop in the next year, 14-15 year, and probably about $1 billion drop in the year after that. So we are already delivering about a 40% through this, a 40% drop in levies from the time that we took office. And if you look at any of the work that's being done around this, the biggest risk to ACC is the Greens-Labour alliance. That's the biggest risk. And then I have my other portfolio of ethnic affairs. Oh, it's a lovely portfolio. I just love ethnic affairs because I am actually someone, and this government is all about diversity. We celebrate diversity, unlike the Labour Party who patronise people and behave like they do. And look how badly they treat women over there. Anyway, one of the great things we've done in ethnic affairs is that we have been able to take ethnic affairs and we've been able to focus on the really great things out of diversity. So the EPIC conference is all about ethnic people in commerce. And what we've done, it started last year, and yes, it was my idea, okay, but we've done more of it this year and we'll do more of it next year, is we're bringing together ethnic people in business and saying, look, the whole of New Zealand has to be focused on business and making this country do really well and perform. So let's actually connect people from traditional mainstream New Zealand businesses with our many people who have come to be in New Zealand and who choose to be New Zealanders. These are great people. Let's get them together and let's help. Well, last year we started off, we had a great initial inaugural conference, about 200 people. This year, just a couple of weeks ago, I was at the opening. Well, yes, I did open it. And it was about 400-odd people there. It was fantastic. It was a great success, and I've heard fantastic feedback about ethnic affairs and the work that they're doing, along with our many ethnic communities, but also building relationships with more mainstream parts of business like the New Zealand Institute of Management. We now have a memorandum of understanding with them so that they, in fact, are learning from the many advantages of ethnic diversity in the workplace. And one of the great things that I can announce, that I have announced, but obviously no one in the Labour Party won't talk about it, which is about extending Language Line. Well, Language Line is something that Ethnic Affairs has had running, which has helped many people who had to interact with government agencies but who did not necessarily feel that confident speaking in English. And what that has been, it's a telephone translating service that's been available for government departments and people interacting. We are now extending that to private business to be able to be provided to them on a user pay basis. And because we're only a little agency, Office of Ethnic Affairs doesn't have a lot of staff in it, and we want to make sure we do it right, what we're doing is that we're expanding it out first to the big banks, and then we'll be further and further from there. But I would like, my vision of this would be able to say anybody who wants to access any form of business or any social service should be able to contact us, those services, or use Language Line to help them. And that's something that I think businesses, people of New Zealand, we'll all benefit from that. And it's actually about making the very best of the 4.5 million people who choose to call New Zealand home. Because we're a little country, our population's even less than Melbourne, and yet we are a great little country. I think it's a fantastic country, the best country in the world. I'm proud to be representing this government. And, Mr Speaker, this budget's a great budget, and we know how great it is because they never want to talk about it.
Order. Point of order.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Dr. David Clark.
Thank you. During the heat of the debate earlier,